Welcome to Strange Reads. I'm David, and today's story is The Statement of Randolph Carter by H.P. Lovecraft. In a nutshell, here's H.P. Howard Phillips Lovecraft was born at 9 a.m. on the 20th of August 1890 at 454 Angel Street in Providence, Rhode Island. His parents were a travelling salesman, Winfield Lovecraft, and his wife, Sarah Susan Phillips. Howard was born into an affluent family, however his father developed an untreated syphilis condition and died in 1898 after being institutionalized for 5 years. His mother, Sarah, stricken by grief, moved with Howard back to a family home. Here, Lovecraft's grandfather, Whipple Van Buren Phillips, became a creative influence. He introduced Lovecraft to the classics such as the Arabian Nights and fostered an interest in other weirder tales. Lovecraft stated that his grandfather became the center of my entire universe. As a child, Lovecraft suffered frequent illnesses and missed much of his schooling. However, this gave him time with his grandfather, who continued to foster the boy's interest in the sciences, particularly astronomy. In 1904, his beloved grandfather passed away. The affluence of Howard and his mother's previous existence now became a more modest lifestyle. Lovecraft lived on a humble income. Rarely published in his lifetime, he could not possibly predict the cultural phenomenon he would become over the next century. He died on the 15th of March 1937. Indeed, his work may have disappeared into obscurity if not for his friends August Derleth and Donald Wandry. They formed Arkham House Publishing, and here the writing of Howard Phillips Lovecraft found a broader audience. The entire story is available free online at hplovecraft.com. I'll put the link in the description. If you're willing to press on, beware, there will be spoilers. The story opens with a desperate monologue giving a sense of plight to our unwilling narrator, who by inference from the name of the story, we understand to be the titular Randolph Carter. Despite the peril of his current circumstances with the authorities, the narrator seems willing to throw it all to chance and offers truth as his defense, despite knowing the truth is bonkers. We learn his colleague Harvey Warren is dead, and they've been researching terrible things for many years. In one sentence, we learn that a witness has seen the men on the Gainesville Pike walking towards Big Cypress Swamp at 11:30, carrying strange instrumentation and a long coil of wire. This effective passage tools the characters and the reader with much of what will be required for the rest of the story. Lovecraft is oozing foreboding language during this part of the story, and referencing that Randolph has been found alone and dazed. Of course, everything the narrator describes can no longer be found. Doesn't matter, press on with the truth. Randolph goes on to describe Harvey Warren's studies in forbidden subjects. This is 1919, there is no dark web. These guys have managed to get hold of the singular text filled with arcane secrets. We then hear of a book containing characters not seen elsewhere. To me, this sounds a lot like the Necronomicon, or maybe the idea that Lovecraft would later develop. The Necronomicon wouldn't be referenced by name until 5 years later in his 1924 The Hound. Randolph tells of his fear for Warren, however, continued to work with him for 7 years. That's almost like long service kind of devotion. But now he fears that Warren may be dead or worse. Our narrator testifies that his memory is vague, but clear about one scene. Essential for Lovecraft aficionados, a crescent moon is referenced, not gibbous, and it is neither waxing nor waning. It was a deep, damp hollow, overgrown with rank grass, moss, and curious creeping weeds, and filled with a vague stench, which my idle fancy associated absurdly with rotting stone. Rotting stone? Is that a thing? Lovecraft spends time lavishing his signature adjectival froth over the description of the decrepitude of the half-obliterated sepulchre.
So you got these clotted lumps of adjectival froth.
Harvey asks Randolph to help him in raising a slab covering the tomb. It's heavy work, but with success, the slab lifts and an effluence of miasmal gases so nauseous is released, knocking them backwards. Out come the lanterns and they set up the instruments. Coverage is bad in 1919, not even a 1990s Nokia would get reception. So they have enough wire to reach the center of the earth. That's a lot of wire to carry to the swamp. Harvey insists on Randolph staying on the surface. He's quite open and direct about his opinion that Randolph is a bag of frail nerves, whilst bragging about how he's going to see all kinds of terrible things, but it's okay for him to venture forth. Harvey disappears into the hollow, and the glow of his lantern disappears into the gloom. Randolph
is left in a graveyard full of grotesque monuments staring down upon him. All he can do is wait for Harvey to contact him via the speaker. A quarter of an hour passes before he even hears a word. Now, Harvey speaks in horrified tones, hoarse with fear and despair. There is a clicking. An instrument or something otherworldly. After the thick coats of description slathered over the opening of the story, Lovecraft now spares us details and does his too horrid to describe routine, which, if you love Lovecraft, and I do, it's what you came for. Harvey tells Randolph to close the tomb and beat it. Beat it! Yes, he says beat it, yeah. These two have known each other for years, so on hearing Harvey's terror, Randolph is inspired into kinda sorta action and offers to kinda sorta come and help. But Harvey insists that Randolph lock him into the tomb and flee. Harvey describes an attack by legions, which evokes the overwhelming nature of his circumstances. Yet his death takes quite a bit of time. All the while, he describes his demise.
Can't go on describing symptoms much longer.
Randolph calls out to Harvey repeatedly until clicking on the receiver resumes, and the crowning horror replies,
You fool, Warren is dead.
And that's the end of the story. However, earlier in the story, we learn that Harvey is obsessed with the wonder regarding some graves containing corpses that never decay but rest firm and fat in their tombs for 1,000 years. Some discussions online believe that Harvey has been overcome by a corpse still living below this tomb, and it is they answering through the speaker.
All of H.P. Lovecraft's work is available online because it's public domain, but that shouldn't stop you from going out and buying 2 or 3 copies of the same volume of stories. You can't have too many books with tentacles on the cover. And what happens if you lend one of these collections to your friend and you really need to read the Statement of Randolph Carter that night, right then? Extra copies. It's 1919, H.P. Lovecraft's cruising the streets, Providence style. He's desperate to write a story. He's coming up with ideas, maybe, maybe not. What's he gonna do? He took a nap.
H.P. Lovecraft lived with his mother until the winter of 1919. However, Sarah Susan Phillips Lovecraft later exhibited the symptoms of a nervous breakdown and went to live with her sister Lillian. By March, though, the need arose for her to be institutionalized at Butler Hospital. After a period of isolation, Lovecraft became increasingly outgoing. He joined writer friends for gatherings and attended a talk by Lord Dunsany in Boston. Dunsany is a huge influence on Lovecraft's dream cycle, a series of fantasies that originally take place in prehistory, but later shift to a dream world setting. The dream cycle includes stories such as The White Ship and The Doom That Came to Sarnath. In 1919, Lovecraft published another short story, Beyond the Wall of Sleep. This was his first science fiction story. The actual inspiration for the story, The Statement of Randolph Carter, came to Lovecraft in a dream. As a prolific letter writer, Lovecraft wrote a letter describing this dream to the Gallomo, which is a portmanteau for his friends Alfred Galpin, Samuel Loveman, and Morris W. Moe. Lovecraft stated that the dream was about Samuel Loveman and himself. A rumor on Wikipedia reads, Lovecraft's character may have been based on real-life Randolph Carter, who was a scholar at Christ's College in the University of Cambridge from 1892 to 1895. Carter took his Part 1 tripos in Oriental Studies and his Part 2 in Egyptology. Carter's whereabouts after Cambridge are unclear, but, like his fictional namesake, he may have used the French Foreign Legion as a route into exploring the North African deserts.
Thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments what you like most about H.P. Lovecraft's The Statement of Randolph Carter. Get in touch via the comments and let us know what you would think would be a cool story for a future Strange Reads episode. Sci-fi, horror, fantasy, anything. Check out some of our other episodes. Anything else? Our social media links are on the screen. Keep it strange.